Flames continue to ravage parts of this province. 27,000 people remain on evacuation order, with many more ready to go at a moment's notice. Tonight, we're getting a clearer picture in some parts as to how bad damage is, but several things remain uncertain. Firefighters are stretched thin, communities are drained, and an order to cancel all travel plans to wildfire areas is still in place. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. We begin tonight in Shuswap, where it's still not clear how many structures have been burned in the Scotch Creek area. Benit Brach is looking at the uncertainty so many are facing as they wait to find out whether their homes are standing.
Photos like these are some of the only pieces of information people in areas like Scotch Creek and Celista are getting. The Bush Creek East wildfire has left parts of these communities reduced to ashes. Jim Cooperman was lucky enough to be able to survey the damage.
It was absolutely dreadful. We did a tour through Scotch Creek and saw the burned out buildings, the fire hall, the library, homes, and businesses.
His home in Lee Creek survived, but he wishes the warnings came sooner.
And as a result, people became trapped in Scotch Creek. To evacuate, they had to take boats.
There have been some questions about whether a planned ignition contributed to the merging of two fires. But today, BC Wildfire is reiterating that is not what happened, and that the flames spread when one fire jumped the river.
I want to be perfectly clear. That planned ignition saved hundreds of homes and properties along the North Shuswap. Unfortunately, with the wind that we knew was forecast and that was coming, that fire went above the control line that we burned off from and then swept back into the communities in the North Shuswap.
Several communities continue to be impacted by the blaze, including Sorrento, Scotch Creek, Lee Creek, Chase, the Adams Lake area, and as far east as Magna Bay. Evacuees are still waiting to return home. Kendall Martin left her home in Scotch Creek, but says some stayed behind to protect their properties.
But, a lot of these structures that we thought we had lost weren't lost. And so there's hope there. There was a really big coming together. We were leaning on each other for comfort. We were sharing things on social media because we didn't have anywhere else to get the information.
While there are many who do stay back in the wildfire situations, the province is once again reminding people not to do that.
If you are under an evacuation order, you must leave immediately. This isn't a suggestion, it is the law. You're making a highly dangerous situation even more dangerous for everyone involved.
For now, it's a waiting game for so many who have no clarity about whether or not their home is still standing. Benit Brach, CBC News, Kamloops.
Critical firefighting equipment has gone missing as tensions rise between community members and wildfire crews. Our John Hernandez is near Chase with that story.
The BC Wildfire Service has confirmed that some of its equipment has gone missing. This is a particular issue in the Shuswap region where about 4,000 homes are under evacuation order. Fire crews have been staging equipment in strategic locations, including a critical bridge in Scotch Creek, but over the past few days, some items have gone missing, including hoses, sprinklers, and even an ATV. The Wildfire Service suspects people are using these items to fight the fires themselves. BC's Premier has told them to stop.
Unfortunately, we are getting reports that some people are tampering with firefighter equipment, moving it to different locations where they think it might be more needed, and we'll put the best possible understanding on this, that people think they're helping. They are not. You're not helping if you're moving firefighter equipment. Firefighters are experts. The equipment is put there for a reason, and when it's not there when the firefighters go to get it, that is a big problem. So please do not tamper with firefighter equipment.
The BC Wildfire Service says the vast majority of people have been supportive and compliant in this region, but there have been issues of people driving past barricades into active fire zones, forcing the RCMP to chase them down. Fire Information Officer Forrest Tower says some people have even thrown garbage at fire trucks.
A lot of our crews, initial attack crews, unit crews, they are, in it for a lot of people stay around, but a lot of people do just, pay for university, and it's a career just like tree planting in BC. We have a very robust history of wildland firefighting in BC. And when they go back to their tent that they've been sleeping in since May, away from family, away from friends, I think it's really disheartening when all they hear is that the messaging is that they've abandoned people.
The Wildfire Service wants people to know that it hasn't abandoned them, and while it's not encouraging people to defy evacuation orders, it says those who do choose to stay behind should be working with wildfire fighters and not against them. In fact, in some cases, locals have been hired by the service to help fight fires on an emergency basis. To do that only requires taking 2 courses. So there are ways to contribute without defying the rules. John Hernandez, CBC News, Chase.
Moving now to the other major wildfire situation in Kelowna, where we are getting a clearer picture of the damage there. Mira Baines reports.
That's right, it's very smoky skies here in Kelowna. Behind me, you would normally be able to see Lake Okanagan and West Kelowna, but right now you can just see a bit of beach. And now these conditions are quite concerning for air crews who are trying to provide support to fight wildfires from the air using helicopters, and that's hindering a lot of their efforts. Now, we have learned that firefighting crews are making progress. They said they had a good day yesterday and last night. And otherwise, weather conditions are improving. Cooler temperatures have helped efforts. No homes were lost in the last 24 hours and no loss of life. Firefighters have been able to use some of their firefighting techniques that they haven't been able to use before because of strong winds. West Kelowna Fire Chief Jason Broland did give us an estimate on the number of homes lost so far, with more estimates to come.
I can report today that I have a loss estimate for the neighborhoods that we have visited. This number is an estimate, and it represents full and partial losses within the neighborhoods. We estimate that there's approximately 50 structures. Now, I want to temper that by saying we're not done yet, and the most damaged neighborhoods are still to come. However, I think it's important that people begin to understand the scope and scale of what our community is facing.
Well, some evacuees are saying that they haven't received official word about their homes being lost, but they are learning about damages from social media video as well as security camera video from other homes. I want you to take a listen to some evacuees and how they learned the devastating news.
Pictures. I had an old picture. It was like as old as I am, 50 years old. I wanted to take that with me, but I just was no time. It takes a long time to get over that day.
Yeah, trying to navigate the emotions that come along with it, and also kind of staying strong, moving forward.
Evacuees are told not to return to their neighborhoods if they were ordered to evacuate. Now, fire officials say that some of those neighborhoods are very damaged, especially the infrastructure. They describe downed power lines and downed trees and even melted street signs. And we also learned from the mayor of Kelowna that there are about 700 to 1,000 people that are still waiting to register with emergency support services. So that's very concerning news, and officials have said that they are trying to ramp up the number of people that are trying to help them.
That's Mira Baines reporting from Kelowna. An evacuation order for some properties in the Okanagan's Lake Country has been downgraded to an alert. The regional district says all properties east of Glenmore Road to Highway 97 from the southern Lake Country border north to Glenmore Road are now on evacuation alert, which means residents must still be ready to leave on short notice. We are also getting another reminder tonight about the importance of following BC's current travel restrictions. The province's emergency management minister says there's still an urgent need for hotel and motel rooms for people forced to leave their homes. Zara Premji joins us with more on this. Zara, take us through the message we're getting.
Right. So, Janella, it's not just evacuees who need accommodation. It's also frontline workers, some of whom are also out of their homes. The state of emergency put in place Friday includes not traveling to certain parts of the region unless for essential services. Now, that includes Kelowna, Kamloops, Oliver, Osoyoos, Vernon, Penticton, to name some of the areas. Now, the province is desperately pleading travelers to cancel reservations.
Thank you again to people for heeding our calls to stay away from fire-impacted communities entirely. Your compassion and your quick action has made a huge difference. We continue to ask everyone not to travel to the Okanagan or the Shuswap for tourism or other non-essential purposes. Parts of the Fraser Canyon are also struggling.
Now, the order is in effect until September 4th, but Ma adds there is some positive news. She says conditions have improved in southeastern portions of BC, using Revelstoke as the boundary and pushing towards Alberta as the border. Now, communities there are looking forward to welcoming tourists once again, they say. Now, Janella, there is some hope in the midst of all of this. More help is on the way. Right now, firefighters are working back-to-back shifts to save lives and homes. But starting Wednesday, 100 firefighters will be arriving from Mexico and 200 from South Africa. And that's along with 18 specialized resources like coordinators and staff from Australia. Janella.
Thanks, Zara. Meanwhile, despite a provincial state of emergency due to wildfires, the BC Conservation Service says people are continuing to have unlawful campfires. Over the weekend, the service says it gave out more than $8,000 in campfire fines, mainly in the Kootenay and South Coast regions. Officials say each fire ban ticket costs more than $1,000. With all of these raging fires, there are dozens of air quality alerts in the province. And as Paige Parsons reports, that's bringing on new warnings from health experts.
In just a few days, Chris Seeger's view in Kelowna went from this to this.
You should be able to see Lake Okanagan, but you can't.
And it's not just the view that's smoky.
It's just like you're sitting around a campfire, but it's 24 hours a day. You know, you can't escape it.
Opening the balcony door for just a few moments sends the amount of particulate detected in the air spiraling upwards.
We can't get it down below 150 today inside with everything closed, and it's crazy.
In an unprecedented year for wildfires, the health effects are clear.
What we tend to see are presentations for asthma exacerbations, increased chronic obstructive pulmonary disease exacerbations, lots of diagnoses of pneumonia. We're seeing studies that show actually increased numbers of heart attacks.
Despite the warnings, some people are still carrying on normally outside.
Just because we're healthy doesn't mean we're going to stay healthy. We have to treat our lungs with respect.
That means preparing for smoky days, moving workouts indoors, having backup activities during vacations, and wearing masks as needed. And not just this summer.
People are starting to think more and more about, hey, this is happening more than 1 or 2 days in a year. And so what's going to happen to me in long term? And for me as a children's doctor, what happens to kids when they're growing and developing during these long-term exposures to wildfire smoke?
Experts are calling for a big picture plan for a problem that seems to be here to stay. Paige Parsons, CBC News, Edmonton.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Well, Darius, I know the smoke has been of top of mind for many people, but I am really hoping for some rain later this week.
Well, I might have some good news for you then, because if you see here, we're looking at a view of the states in California. You might wonder what that has to do with us here in BC, but if we take a look at Tropical Storm Hilary moving up into California, you can see that as it makes landfall, it's pushing this wave of precipitation up through the states and towards Canada. And if we take a look at BC, you can sort of see the effect here. You can see that this rain that has been moving up through the states is going to reach us here in BC later tonight. You can see that it's going to move up and mostly be in the southeast tonight. But as this low pressure system moves through the province, it's going to draw that moisture in towards itself, pushing a lot of it into the areas where we have these really severe fires through the southern interior, the Okanagan, the Thompson, and it's going to give at least some moisture to those areas. So humidity is going to climb, but we will also see around 5 to 10 millimeters approximately in the southeast. And as of now, it looks like around 1 to 5 millimeters of rain in the southern interior. Now, that could go up if we see that band of moisture track further west, which is really what forecasters are hoping for. Now, in terms of temperatures, we're also going to see those stay below seasonal for much of the southern interior, mostly because of the smoke blanketing these areas and that low pressure system moving through, bringing a lot of cloudiness into those areas as well. We should look at the smoke forecast for tomorrow. Vancouver, south coast, clearing out a bit because the system is going to push that smoke up into the central interior tomorrow and into Wednesday. So similar story both those days in terms of that smoke. Across the province tomorrow, it looks like we have that cloud moving in. Chance of some rain, possibly some thunderstorms, but it should be mostly rain moving in. Not expecting really high winds like we saw last week. Even if those thunderstorms do show up, it'll just mean more precipitation. Here in Vancouver, just some rain on Wednesday if we do get it at all, and then a pretty sunny week ahead, which is, we're pretty used to it by now.
Yes, really looking forward to a little of that relief a little later on this week. Thank you so much, Darius.
Thank you.
Smoke, evacuations, loss, worry. BC's wildfires can have a profound effect. As the threat from the fires goes up, so too can anxiety and fear. A heavy blanket of smoke from hundreds of wildfires burning across BC is prompting air quality advisories for much of the province.
There is the air quality advisory for high particulate concentration due to the wildfire smoke. That is widespread.
This councillor says the smoky skies can have both physical and psychological impacts, sometimes causing visceral anxiety for people as they fear for the health and safety of their loved ones.
So this smoke ends up reminding us about what might be going on outside of our local area. And then we start to have these fears and worries. Is this coming here? What is summer going to be like for me? Is my home safe? Am I going to be okay?
She says more people are increasingly feeling the threat of climate change, especially as the province deals with fallout of catastrophic wildfires and flooding.
And when we have these thoughts, they're generally matched with some physical symptoms. So that might be kind of the racing heart, sweaty palms, feeling hot all over. Some people describe it as being really jittery or really tight.
Valaka Luna says for her, the smoke triggers thoughts of uncertainty about the future.
For me, it's because I've seen what Kamloops was a few years ago when I was in the midst of the smoky sky, and I know it got so much worse. So for me, I know this is the beginning.
Experts say the reality is climate disasters will most likely continue to worsen, but there are ways to alleviate stress.
Having a support system can be so helpful during this time, even if the support system might be feeling the same way that you are. Not feeling alone in an experience can be really beneficial to make plans for your different what-if thoughts. So what if I do get evacuated? Rather than just hoping it doesn't happen, actually take time to figure out what you would do.
Environment Canada says most of the smoke in the Lower Mainland is expected to dissipate later this week, with some rain relief in sight. Reliable information about wildfires is essential to people's safety, and that has Justin Trudeau denouncing Meta's ban against Canadian news outlets on Facebook and Instagram.
Right now, in an emergency situation, where up-to-date local information is more important than ever, Facebook's putting corporate profits ahead of people's safety, ahead of supporting quality local journalism. This is not the time for that.
Meta began blocking posts by news organizations, including the CBC, in June. It came in response to Ottawa requiring social media platforms to pay Canadian publishers for the content they create. The Prime Minister made the remarks on Prince Edward Island, where he is meeting with his cabinet.
I think it's important because right now everybody's in distress and the community needs to show their support.
One community helping out another. When we return, we'll find out how one restaurant in Salmon Arm is helping provide comfort to wildfire evacuees. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Amid the wildfire crisis, people in BC's southern interior communities have stepped up to lend a helping hand to first responders and those affected by wildfires. CBC photojournalists Ben Nelms and Justin Boulin have been capturing life in and around the Okanagan as people rally together to help one another. Some businesses in Salmon Arm have stepped up to help wildfire evacuees from the Shuswap area. Over the weekend, barbecued pork sandwiches, pies, pastries, and drinks were served to community members in need, providing a space for evacuees to connect with others before having to figure out what to do next.
We're doing a free lunch for the evacuees. We're doing barbecue pork sandwiches, and we also have pies, fruit pies from the pie company, and we have some pastries from Flake Pastry as well. And we have like water and all that is donated by community members as well. I think it's important because right now everybody's in distress, and the community needs to show their support for the surrounding communities, right? People are losing their homes, and you know, they're an enormous amount of stress. And if we can just give them a nice warm meal and a place to sit and relax and talk to each other, and maybe it'll alleviate some of the stress, or at least it gives them a stopping point until they figure out what they're going to do next. We're just happy doing this, having, you know, our families, friends, and also we have other businesses that have contributed greatly. Salmon Arm is a great community, and that we respond every time that there's a crisis. Salmon Arms has always been the central hub in the shoe swap area, and we got really good people here that just help out.
Here we have a live shot of Canby Street with City Hall shining bright in the background. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Firefighters describe it as fingers of flames that reach into a community, destroying one house, leaving another untouched. But what causes the random force of a wildfire to scorch a house, yet leave a tomato plant standing? People who study fire behavior say some neighborhoods were hit with a wall of flames, while others were showered with sparks.
Debris, burning branches and bark that gets lifted up in the convection column, and it gets cast ahead of the fire. And so there's sort of this shower of embers that fall onto the houses. And so where these embers landed on the house was obviously flammable material, but anything else around it that wasn't flammable didn't burn.
But some houses didn't just burn, they exploded. A fire this hot heats up everything in its path. Gases are emitted from trees, vinyl siding, even cedar roof shakes. By the time the flames arrive, the vapors ignite and the house is gone in a matter of seconds.
Then we flew the fire to the east of there. You could see the thermal column sitting in the upper atmosphere.
The thermal column is a wind force created by swirling flames and hot air.
And it's just terrifying to be close to.
BC's chief forester says the thermal column is what causes flames to leap ahead, leaving patches of land untouched. He says it's so powerful it can send burning trees flying a couple of kilometers ahead and over any fire breaks dug by firefighters.
It's not uncommon for a very intense wildfire to lift large chunks of debris off the forest floor, including dead or downed trees, and throw them high into the atmosphere. Sometimes pilots have reported seeing very large amounts of wood suspended in the thermal column.
It doesn't help that it's been the driest summer in Kelowna since records were kept. Peterson says interface fires like this that jump from forests to towns are hard to control, hard to predict, and this one is far from over. Natalie Clancy, CBC News, Vancouver.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back.
And that's what empowered nations and empowered people to just literally steal land.
This is a consequence of your actions.
And it's time to give land back.
Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Support sustainable agriculture and celebrate local food with Margaret Gallagher at Feast of Fields. Enjoy the Gourmet Harvest Festival at the Stable Harvest Farms on September 10th. Tickets at farmfolkcityfolk.ca. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
That is your late news for this Monday. Thank you so much for watching. For news anytime, visit our website, cbc.ca/bc. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Have a great night.